Hello, everyone, and I come to you with apologies. News has broken this afternoon that Adrian Newey is going to be the team principal of Aston Martin Aramco Formula One team in 2026. And there's an entire new structure, quite apart from what we thought it was going to be. And unfortunately, that news has torpedoed the video that I recorded with young master Kunal Shah. But because Mr. Shah was so generous with his time and so insightful, given that he has worked at that team before, I felt that it was only fair that I would put up that video anyway. So this is just a short intro to say I'm really sorry that we're not talking about Adrian Newey becoming team principal, and the video you're going to see is going to feel a little bit out of date already, but we will do a proper team principal Adrian Newey Aston Martin video tomorrow. In the meantime, just enjoy Kunal Shah. Hello, everyone. So hidden amongst all of the nonsense surrounding Plankware, 9mm, Lando start, Oscars binned it, whatever, Aston Martin did a stealth move, and we now hear that their team principal, Andy Cowell, he of Brixworth Mercedes high performance fame, has been pushed aside and is no longer team principal, and perhaps is going to be heading up the Honda effort, Aston Martin. So luckily, I still have Kunal with me. Hi, Kunal.
Hello.
Kunal, this is your team, isn't it? What's going on?
It is, yes, absolutely. The old Dadford Road, Silverstone, Team Silverstone. Andy Stevenson is still there, and so is Will Hings, and Andrew Green is working on other projects inside Aston Martin. But
indeed.
If anyone meets him, ever speak to him about cricket, he loves it. He used to be a fast bowler himself. Some great conversations with him about the best cricketers around in the world at that time.
Who did he say?
Well, he did not say Sachin Tendulkar, and that's for an.
What? Did he even watch the game?
I will let him know. I will ask him that again. But no, I think, very, very aggressive moves by Lawrence Stroll. And not unexpected, I would say, very impatient. He's probably realized that if Enzo Ferrari could do it all the time, why not me? I'll wear the dark glasses and look like the old man as well. And is it the right thing to do? We'll never know. But, I believe that the likes of Andy Cowell and several others, Dan Fallows also, who, left some months ago, they are some of the brightest people who won elsewhere, right? So why do you think they won't win here? And, sometimes patience is all you need. Ottmar Safnauer has always told me that you cannot build a Grand Prix winning team, a World Championship winning team overnight. You've got to be patient. You've got to invest in people, processes, equipment, and so on. And let's see. Maybe Lawrence Stroll is trying to, do his own book, and maybe he's realized that if somebody, as intelligent as Christian Horner is available, he needs to find a place for him. Maybe that could also be the reason. So it's probably not just down to Andy Cowell not doing well. It could just be because Christian Horner is probably available.
I mean, the doors have been revolving at Aston Martin before they've even had a chance to run their 2026 car, which is what they say that everything's building up to. Look, some of these higher fires I can sort of understand. Dan Fallows started 2023 incredibly. Fernando had his spate of 6 podiums, and I'll never forget that Brazilian Grand Prix in 23. It was awesome. But you can understand why they might have felt that the development stagnated a little bit. Okay, I get that. But now they've brought in Enrico Cardile, they've got rid of Dan Fallows, then they've got Mike Crack, they've moved Mike Crack aside, they've put Andy Cowell in, then they've moved Andy Cowell aside, they've got Adrian Newey in, and now they're on the hunt for a new team principal. And you're name-checking Lawrence, Big Loro as I like to call him, but it sounds like on the grapevine, actually it's because the big guns, Adrian Newey and Andy Cowell. I think the two biggest proponents of the turbo hybrid era have butted heads, and Adrian Newey, the guy with some skin in the game, there has had his way and knocked him out the park.
I mean, that's probably why Adrian Newey made sure he had some kind of ownership of Aston Martin, so there is more weightage to what he's saying. But again, we wouldn't know till somebody actually writes a book about it or confirms saying, yes, we were at loggerheads and Adrian Newey forgot that this is not a Red Bull where he needs to come out with his horns each time. But I could be that, could also well just be that I want Christian Horner. Christian Horner's bringing investors, investing money in the team, buying some sort of a stake, etc. And you just need somebody like Horner, who is very, very ruthless, as we know, to make things happen. And maybe that's the reason why they're giving him a shot.
So you're seeing this as a straight play to get Christian Horner in? Because my understanding of this is that they've talked to Mattia Binotto, who said no. They've talked to Martin Whitmarsh, who understandably has said no. If I was him, I wouldn't have said yes. I mean, he was another one they treated, I think, quite unceremoniously. And they've talked to Andreas Seidel, who I hear is still potentially on the shortlist. But you're saying this is a direct play for Christian Horner.
My reading is as follows. So where all could Christian Horner go with his set of investors to buy a Formula One team? Red Bull is out of sequence. Racing
Alpine,
Bulls are
potentially.
So Alpine is one of them, right? But maybe Flavio has not come back to not be the top dog. He wants to be the top dog there. Could well be. Could be that Alpine, but probably not getting the valuation. Maybe Alpine Renault not wanting to sell completely, and maybe he realizes that, if he wants to do it, he has to buy Renault out completely. Could be various reasons. Haas said no to him. Williams is out of touch, right? Audi is there. McLaren is out of touch. Williams.
Ferrari
So
probably
could it
aren't
be?
going to sell him anything, are they?
Yeah. So maybe Aston Martin was probably the only option for him and his investors to go and make something out of. So could well be that. And this whole talk of Andreas Seidel, I think I'd love to see him back. I think he was unceremoniously sacked from McLaren before Andrea Stella came and suddenly turned the ship in 2023. And then Seidel had a lot of management run-ins at Sauber, Audi, and so on. And both the Sauber and the Audi guy were asked to leave. And Seidel's done great work in the VEC, I would say, with Porsche, especially when he was doing what he was doing. So could well be him. You never know. But, again, what you said about run-ins, that's what could happen when you have just so many, people at the top who individually in different teams were, doing magic. And, there are so many magicians expected to pull out magic tricks all the time. So probably some people management issues at Aston Martin.
But you could argue that actually a Newey Horner conglomerate is a tried and tested thing already. We know it works because it has worked, and all of the news that's coming out is that actually now they're best friends again, and they're singing Wonderwall to each other, which sounds lovely. I get it. I get I definitely get the allure of having the band back together again, which is kind of what would happen. Do you see it as being successful, though? Do you think that works?
On this whole Newey Horner being best friends again, let's remember, apart from one quote from Adrian Newey, when he said I think he felt morally obligated to act on the Christian Horner scandal, the sexting scandal that happened. But after that, have they had a fallout? Have they reconciled? Nothing has come officially from either of them. Or, this whole thing that they went and watched, a music festival together. I don't even believe there were pictures out there in social media, or even if there were they just being cordial to each other and snapped and released? We don't know anything of that, right? So I like that it stirs up the pot. That's definitely good for Formula One, for Aston Martin specifically. But I believe Christian Horner is one of the reasons why Red Bull is what it is. Let's remember that. It's in his, Red Bull is his DNA and he is Red Bull's DNA. Like Vettel said, you're going to feel the impact of Christian, having left after some time and maybe for a long, long time, right? So could well be that winning combo, especially with Honda there and with Lawrence having a bottomless pit of money to throw at. And again, they're both used to one driver teams, and maybe Aston Martin could be that one driver team with Lance Stroll.
Yeah,
He
maybe,
is he,
maybe.
he is the constant, right? He's gone through. Who did he have? He Sebastian Vettel and then Fernando Alonso alongside him. And like Otmar Safnauer said, Lance's driver contract doesn't really have an end date.
Honestly, Adrian Newey will cement himself as the greatest designer of all time if Lance Stroll wins a world championship in his car. Sorry, Lance. It's just I said it. Kunal had nothing to do with that. Yeah. Look, yes, Honda, Christian Horner, Adrian Newey sounds like a match made in heaven. What happens next? Are they going to go after the last piece of the pie? Is Max going to turn up as well?
That's the most surprising part to me, right? And I'll be surprised if Max joins Christian Horner there, and
Yeah.
if Max joins, will Jos join him there? Because, that's usually where the problem was. But I think 2027 is wide open. Uh, Fernando Alonso could continue. Maybe George Russell's available. Maybe Charles Leclerc is available. Maybe Oscar Piastri is available. Who knows? So lots of, I believe the management of a team outlasts the the drivers definitely. Like we've seen Frederick Vasseur come and go through several drivers, and so has Christian Horner, and so will Lawrence Stroll as well. So I don't think whether or not Max will sign is the reason there. And I'll put it this way, I'd love to be in a situation where Aston Martin Honda, designed by Newey and led by Horner, are so strong that Max is compelled to sign with them to go win his, I don't know, sixth world championship or fifth or whatever that number could be.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I mean, the only pushback I would give you is I think out of all of the drivers on the grid, Max is the only one that I think actually you can definitely say will bring you some tangible performance. So we haven't seen him in anything other than a Red Bull. So I mean, I don't know, but that's the feeling I get when I see him jump in that car week in week out. But I think on your premise, yes, I agree with you, and you're somebody that has worked in a team and seen how this works, especially Force India when they had next to no budget and they got the results that they did. This is not about necessarily the individuals that are there. It's the process. But that's what worries me the most about Aston Martin. Is that it's not drivers that are rotating in and out through the door. It's the personnel. And Andy Cowell came in. This is what makes me uncomfortable. It does make me feel slightly uncomfortable. That Andy Cowell isn't a nobody. This is a guy that has tasted success 8 seasons on the trot. He is a great leader of men and women. You kind of have to take the engine side of it out a little bit and just look at the processes that he brought to Brixworth that have made them, and Mercedes by extension, who they were through the turbo hybrid era. So he's come in and he has taken time to assess what's going on. He's then made his changes and divided it very clearly into trackside engineering and back at Silverstone technical stuff led by Adrian Newey. That's a process that's there. It's not had time to bed in. We've not even had it tested yet because they've not really had a car competitive enough to test it, and we're already throwing it out to bring in somebody else who's then going to create their own culture and their own process. How many of those are you going to have to bed in and really see the success of before you start to see results on track? This to me doesn't sound like a good recipe for success.
No, it doesn't. And, if anything, like you've expressed, Formula One is, yes, a technical sport. It's where you build fast cars, but it's the men and women in the team who build fast cars. And it's the leaders who lead them into sound cultures, pressure situations, no blame cultures, and so on, and processes. And I believe, we'll just have to wait and watch how it all goes. But yes, largely, it doesn't seem like a revolving door policy with so many heads rolling and joining each time is leading to consistency in efforts, right? And we said this during the Laurent Mekies and the Pierre Wash situation with trying to fix Red Bull, that they're trying to fix Adrian Newey's Red Bull racing car, right? Because it wasn't the car that they designed. Yes, they designed it together, but it was all, as we were made to believe, or we are still being made to believe, Adrian Newey specifically designing that Red Bull and the suspension, given how important it is, etc., etc. So it doesn't seem right, but could it be that there's a financial transaction? Could it be that Toto Wolff has, sold a certain part of his stake, made some $300 million, and maybe Lawrence Stroll has wanted to do something similar to that, saying, let me offload some stake, let me keep the Aston Martin branding, I will still be the chairman of the board. Let Christian, who's been fishing around every team, put in some money. Could be, I don't know. If it is Christian Horner, if it is Andreas Steidl, it doesn't make sense. Definitely not on paper that you've let Andy Cowell go and bring Andreas Seidel there. But I'd love to see how it goes, because there will be a point of time when they will all run out of patience.
Yeah, I'm very excited to see what Aston do. I think I think they've now been built up into this entity that could be the greatest thing since sliced bread, or they could be Ferrari Mark II. And just your point about Toto, the difference there, the key difference is that he might have sold some of his stake, but it hasn't changed the structure of the team. He's still the team principal and the CEO, and that's what has changed directly at Aston Martin. Andy Cowell has been moved aside, and yes, part of me is happy that Adrian Newey is getting centre stage, because that's how Formula One teams that have utilised him in the past have done well, because he gets his say and does what he wants to do. But if you're going to hire Andy Cowell, use Andy Cowell, and that's, as I say, that's what makes me a bit uncomfortable.
I believe
Sorry,
they will move him to the power unit side, because that's where he's earned his name. And even this whole thing, yes, Adrian Newey is the masterpiece, and the one that needs to be celebrated the most. But Formula One teams have moved beyond just one person making such a striking difference to a team's performance, right? And what I mean by that is, yes, Adrian will lead people and he will have his design philosophies and his intelligence on the car, but there will still be lots of other intelligent men and women who will have their say into what's being built out there. And maybe they just need more ruthless ways of design management. And why do I say that is, we are seeing a recent trend where you see Komatsu, you see James Wobbles, you see Andrea Stella, you see Laura Mekies, a lot of engineers becoming team principals, right? And over the years, this is how old times in Formula One always were. Patrick Head, right? To name, for example, uh, including several ones that went through to Ferrari as well. They were all engineers. Then came this, era of businessmen, Flavio Briatore coming and Luca di Montezemolo coming and several other businessmen coming and leading Formula One teams because of the business side of things. And we're going back to this whole, engineering side of things. So there's always a circle. But Christian Horner is again one of those businessmen hire that would come. He knows how to run the business of Formula One teams, right? Could it be that that's what Lawrence Stroll thinks he's lacking? Could it be that there are enough and more engineers, like you said as well? So we'll just have to first wait and see what officially is announced and what happens. Because if it is Andrea Seidel, again, it's somebody with an engineering bent of mind who's come there, and then that changes the whole equation. But most of the conversations that you had about processes and people and the whole philosophy of culture will be there irrespective of who's going to come in place of Andy Cowell.
Well, I hope they have got some processes that work.
They do have a good hire and fire process, so at least that
Clearly,
seems to be working.
yes, their HR department is working overdrive. Kunal, thanks again so much. This was cool. I am super excited to see what Aston Martin do next season, because I think not just for them, but I think also the fate of a few drivers rest on how they come out of the blocks. But it'll be exciting to see. And Adrian Newey is always a wild card, so it's always fun to see what he's going to do. Let's leave it there. Thank you so much for your time. As usual, guys, please like, please subscribe, please leave us a comment. We'll read every single one. We'll reply to as many as we possibly can. We'll see you guys in the next one.